He wheels and deals all the contracts in every section.
One FM.
Burby's 99.5 FM. Kaieteur Radio. This is the news on top of the hour.
Live from our studio in Georgetown.
Kaieteur Radio, 99.1 FM.
Good day, welcome to your news at noon on Kaieteur Radio. I'm Kevin Smith. Let's get to the news in detail. Notwithstanding the barrage of criticisms against the flawed 2016 Stabroek Block production sharing agreement, Guyana still needs to take an eagle's eye approach to the multi-billion-dollar bills being racked up by ExxonMobil and its partners. This is according to former Finance Minister Winston Jordan. Jordan said the monitoring of the costs being recovered by ExxonMobil's affiliate and the operator of the Stabroek Block, Esso, is one of the key ways Guyana can prevent revenue leakage and wanton abuse. He said too that it is a sure way of maximizing returns to the country. Before Guyana gets a drop of her own oil, he reminded that Exxon gets to use significant portions to run its operations as well as for transportation purposes for free. Reports on the quantity of oil used in this regard have not been released since the PPPC government assumed office. This is in spite of promises by Vice President Dr. Bauer Jagdeo that this would be done in the interest or transparency and accountability. Amid the breakneck speed with which the Irfan Ali administration has been undertaking a number of civil projects, Kaieteur News publisher and businessman Glenn Lal has raised concerns about the exorbitant costs for some of these contracts and also lamented the lack of transparency in the deals. For years, Mr. Lal and other civil society groups, both locally and overseas, have flagged massive corruption in this country. Only recently, Article 13 co-founder Dr. Yog Mahadio said corruption was once again reaching dangerous levels here. Making reference to the damning allegations disclosed during a Vice News expose on Vice President Jagdeo and the PPPC government, Guyana last year dropped 2 points on the Transparency International Corruption Index, meaning that corruption in the country's public sector has climbed after a full year under the PPPC government. When the PPPC demitted office back in 2015, the country was scoring below 30 points. However, during the years of the APNU-AFC, that score steadily improved, reaching 41. And in other news, the body of a businessman was on Monday found with a knife stuck in his back at his No. 2 village, East Kanji Burby's home. Dead is well-known businessman and president of the Port Morant Cricket Club, 53-year-old Vikram Subaran. The discovery was made sometime around 6 hours by a cousin and brother of the deceased in the kitchen of the bottom flat of his home. According to his brother, Dean Subaran, he arrived at the house sometime around 6 hours on Monday and was confronted by the cousin who had arrived earlier to clean up. He said the relative informed him that his brother appeared to have been killed since there was blood splattered across the kitchen floor. Investigations are ongoing. And I'll just tell you, police are investigating the murder of Rodwell Phillips, called Fishy, a 33-year-old mason of Broad Street, Charlestown, whose body was seen lying on the La Penitence public road next to a cutlass early Monday morning. The incident occurred sometime between midnight and 1 hour, police said in a statement. The scene was processed by investigators and Philip's body was examined and chop wounds were seen at the center of his chest, his right side face, his left side back and one chop wound to his left foot. Several persons were questioned in the area, police said, adding that the CCTV footage obtained is to be viewed. And moving on, the Ghana Public Service Union is reminding the government about the power public servants hold and is warning them to treat public workers better, lest they want to return to 1999 when the workers caused a shutdown of public services by staying away from work. The GPSU last week filed documents to have the court instruct the Irfan Ali administration to engage in the legally required collective bargaining talks regarding workers' wages and salaries. GPSU President Patrick Yard lashed out at the administration last Friday for continuously and deliberately denying the required talks and arbitrarily imposing increases on state employees. And just before we head to a short break, let's tell you that after 2 years in office, the PPP has not only refused to keep its manifesto promise to renegotiate the 2016 oil contract, but has now taken on the role of defending the deal and its partner, American oil major ExxonMobil. Leading up to the 2020 elections, the party, while in opposition, excited the Guyanese people with its plans to bring back the oil company to the table. The citizens still remain desperate for changes to the deal that the former APNU-AFC coalition had entered into with the oil company. Soon after taking office, the ministers, along with the head of state, Irfan Ali, have turned their faces to another direction, insisting that the deal simply cannot be changed to maintain the sanctity of contracts. You listen to 99.1 and 99.5 FM. This is the Kaieteur Radio. We'll take a short break and return with your news.
Did you sound? Heard you got a couple $1 million for me. Summer's gonna be crazy. It's easy like 1, 2, 3. Can't believe all this money for me. Money for me. I got to get the CASH. That's the code for the vault, so let's play. Top up with 1,000 and the next day you could be a millionaire. Did you sell?
More than 15 million to grab this summer. Top up with $1,000 or more to collect the letters to spell CASH.
For a chance to catch millions in the Digicel's cash vault.
Top up today.
Did you sell?
This is GHK Lal, inviting you to join me weekdays from Monday to Friday on the National Outlook for commentary on a range of issues, immediately after the 12 noon and 7 p.m. newscasts on Kaieteur Radio at 99.1 FM and 99.5 FM. Looking forward to you sharing in the conversation.
Welcome back to your news at noon. I'm Kevin Smith. For a government that boasts of transparency and accountability, these two important pillars are grossly lacking, especially in the local management of the oil and gas sector. This is the view of Dr. Yog Mahadio, a founding member of civil society organization Article 13. Mahadio, a stern activist for transparency, has flagged the fact that Guyanese will be paying for a $1.3 billion pipeline to transport natural gas from the Eliza 1 and 2 fields in the Stabroek Block to Wales on the west bank of Demerara. However, the oil company ExxonMobil has moved to award the contract for these works, all behind closed doors. It was last week that Subsea 7 and Van Oord, two international companies, were awarded the job. Mahadio explained in an exclusive interview that the oil company has not only chosen a firm to conduct the works without the knowledge of the Guyanese citizens, but has also done so without first attaining the approval required by the Environmental Protection Agency. In other news, there are many outstanding questions regarding the PPPC relationship with embattled Chinese businessman Ji Rongsu. Under the administration, the naturalized Chinese national has amassed significant portions of mineral-rich land in various regions across Guyana and has also been able to develop other businesses within the lucrative fuel, construction, and logging industries. Su has, however, claimed in a recent undercover Vice News report that access to his wealth has come as a result of bribing public officials, with Vice President Bharat Jagdeo being at the center of the claims as the top government official he works for and collects bribes on his behalf. Transparency advocate and prominent figure Christopher Ram has maintained that there are serious questions that must be asked with regard to the utterances of Zhirong Su, and more importantly, how he accumulated the wealth he now has in light of this claim of paying bribes. To that, Ram said the Auditor General's office could play a role. Emancipation Day is celebrated annually on the first day of August. It is the day that the heroes of past slave rebellions that ushered in the end of transatlantic slave trade and brought freedom to the enslaved are celebrated. The celebrations follow the general concepts initiated by slaves freed on the memorable day, August 1st, 1838, 184 years ago, where African menus and locally produced drinks, wine and spirits were enjoyed amongst singing of emancipation songs. GPSU calls on the government of Guyana to do its introspection on the public service, which culturally was largely populated by descendants of the abused. The government should ensure that it ceases its current political victimization of the public service because of its traditional composition and yield to the tenets of Article 38G of the Constitution of Guyana. And now we wrap things up with your COVID-19 update, followed by the page 7 of today's Kaieteur News. With one patient still admitted to the COVID-19 ICU, the Ministry of Health on Monday reported that within the last 24 hours, they have recorded 27 new cases across the country. The ministry revealed that 22 persons are in institutional isolation, 580 are in home isolation, and 2 are in institutional quarantine. To date, a total of 67,960 persons have recovered from the virus. Of the Ali government. Today marks 2 years since the Irfan Ali-led PPPC government returned to power. Today, and perhaps for the rest of the week, social media and elsewhere would be overrun by propagandists extolling the administration that had to fight their way into government after the APNU-AFC made a valiant effort to stop them. But after 2 years, we can hardly find anything to smile about. If there was one thing that President Ali and his government could have distinguished themselves with during these past years, is our nascent oil and gas sector. After making many grandiose promises during the elections campaign, this sector has been managed poorly. This is the biggest failure of the Ali administration. After 2 years, there is no discernible change. The lopsided contract remains in place, the oil companies continue to abuse and misuse us, and instead of defending Guyanese, the government has been siding with Exxon and its partners. Other failures include unable to revive the unprofitable sugar industry despite pumping several billions into it. Failure to clamp down on corruption, which has been made worse with the damning revelations by Vice News against Vice President Bharat Jagdeo. Failure to unite the country despite empty rhetoric about one Guyana. Racial tension remains very high across the country, which is being exploited by politicians for their narrow, selfish gains. Incompetent ministers. In President Ali's cabinet are a number of incompetent ministers who should be given marching orders. Deodat Indar, Nigel Dharamlal, just to name a few. Failure to repair poor public infrastructure. Everywhere you go in this country, you can find a number of pothole-filled streets. Citizens are paying their taxes while foreigners are getting duty-free concessions to bring in heavy-duty equipment to break up our roads. Poor parliamentary oversight. Instead of using the National Assembly to encourage greater inclusiveness, the PPPC government and its lackey speaker have run roughshod over the August body, shutting out the opposition and reducing the parliament to a go-to place for money. And failure to address adequately the cost of living crisis that has enveloped this country. And that brings us to the end of today's News at Noon. I'm Kevin Smith. Thank you for listening. Your time is now 12 hours 17.